Hello, I'm Miss Emma. So have a look at the IPA. The phonetic symbols literally just represent a speech sound. That's a phoneme, the smallest sound unit. So think about the sounds when we say the word said. The smallest sound units are s, e, d. So even though there are 4 letters, there are only 3 sounds. Now the phonetic symbols are a little bit confusing, ironically, with the letters that look like letters. So you can see here the letter S, the letter E, the letter D. So when we think of SED, it's logical for adults. They see, okay, so it's S-E-D, and that pings your brain to think of the sounds S-E-D. It's actually easier to use something you're not used to. So the other phonetic symbols that don't look anything like the letters of the alphabet, they're actually a lot easier for adults to understand because it's something different. And it means that the adults won't associate that with something. Like you look at the E and you will link it with a letter, probably the letter E. So like in the word end. So you look at that and think, yes, that's logical, E for like end, but actually it doesn't. It means the sound like in the word said. So the AI is the grapheme there for the sound pick, if you like, the picture of the sound for the sound Now if you're learning to speak in English, the phonetic symbols are really useful. So you can go to a website like 2phonetics.com and you could type in a word and see the phonetic symbols, and as long as you know the speech sound that is associated with those phonetic symbols, you can figure out the word. So if you didn't know how to say the word that is written as S-A-I-D, you would look at the phonetic symbols and go S-E-D. Oh, okay, so it's the word said. Now orthographic mapping is all about using that to track back. Okay, so if the word is said and it's spelled S-A-I-D, and there are 3 speech sounds, so every letter must map. So the S must represent the sound S, the AI must represent the and the D must represent the D. And that's what orthographic mapping, that's what the cognitive and linguistic processes that are involved with orthographic mapping, that's what it's all about. It's about looking at words, understanding how they map, and actually looking at it just a few times, understanding it and storing it in your long-term memory. That's what leads to orthographic mapping, which is not a teaching approach. It's something, I always say, it's something they reach, not something we teach. So think about that sound and think about our written code. The letter A can represent at least 8 different sounds, like for example in the word any. But to a 3 or a 4-year-old, how are they going to figure that out using a print-to-speech approach? And this is generally why people teach words like this as sight words. They call them sight words, and what they mean by that is that the child is going to learn them by memory, kind of by the shape of it, usually using flashcards. So the child has to memorize the word and say the word really quickly, because the adult doesn't think the child can apply phonics, if you like, to it. So although we know the children need to understand the phoneme to grapheme mapping, parents, teachers will often think, yeah, but how am I going to teach that? In my phonics program, the A represents the A. Here it represents the E, and the Y represents the E. That E you saw earlier on.
N-E-N-E.
So wouldn't it be great if the children all knew phonetic symbols, and if we could use the phonetic symbols so the children could work out the words first of all with that phonetic symbol that just represents a sound? They haven't got to look at a letter and think, well, which sound does it represent in this word? Like that letter A could represent 8 different sounds. Well, even a very short word, there's a lot of combinations there. So imagine if the children could use phonetic symbols so they could work out what the word would be without looking at the picture, without looking at the picture clue, and then track back. So if they can work out it's the word ache or acorn without looking at the picture, then they can track back on the real word because they know what it is and they know the segmentation because they've already seen the phonetic symbols for ache or So when they look at the word spelt correctly, they can see, so in this word, the A sound is represented by the A, the K sound is represented by the C, the OR sound is represented by the OR, and the N sound is represented by the N. Acorn. And we hope the child knows what an acorn is. But we don't want them relying on the pictures, but that is why so many readers have these pictures that are so obvious for the children. It's so the children can work out what the word is. The problem is when children don't track back and work out the phoneme to grapheme mapping. They might memorize the word said, but not understand that it's made up of the 3 sounds, and the representation for the is the AI. In the word any, imagine if we had a phonetic symbol for kids that was actually something fun. So not those squiggles or the ones that look like letters that can confuse even adults, but just a character, a monster, a speech sound monster, a phonetic symbol for kids. So when they look at a word like this, they don't have to be blinded by the letters and think, oh, what does that A represent? What does that N represent? What does that Y represent? In the early stages, when they become orthographic mappers, it just they work it out without, they don't have to work it out. They understand it, they know it, they've been exposed to it. But in the early stages, they need to look at it and be able to quickly know, okay, so that's E. So how about we have phonetic symbol for kids that are characters they will enjoy learning?
Maya?
I.
So we're taking a speech to print approach. Here's Monster E. Monster E loves to say the sound E. Monster E doesn't like the letter E unless the E represents the sound E. So we've got our high frequency ways to represent the sound E on the outside and the others on the inside. But they're all really important to teach, and actually the ones on the inside are more important to teach because the children are far more likely to learn the others in their basic phonics program. However, they need to know all the combinations to become orthographic mappers. And the problem is that a lot of children spend far too long learning the high frequency ones and kind of ignoring the others, or the others are ignored. So we're doing it differently, a speech to print approach. It means that alongside your phonics teaching, which is relatively easy to teach, your 4 code levels and your code level readers, etc., as well as this, right from the beginning, the children can explore high frequency words that have the graphemes that the children might not see in their basic phonics program. And think about those phonetic symbols. How easy it would be for children to learn how to read if our code was 1-to-1. You know, if each sound was represented by one sound pick, one grapheme, but it's not. So what we do is we use phonetic symbols for kids that are fun, that even little children are going to learn really, really quickly. And just by learning these phonetic symbols for kids, it opens up the whole world for them, especially with regards to learning high frequency sight words.
Kinsey, you ready to do your monsters?
Yeah.
Okay, you ready? What is this monster? Good girl. What is this monster? Ah, good girl. What is this monster? Good girl. Tit. Well done. What is this monster? Good girl. What is this monster? E. That's it. E. Good girl. Ready? What is this monster? Good girl.
And in the first couple of weeks of teaching in class, we do so much with just those first 6 speech sounds because we're teaching children how to decode and encode without that confusion of letters. But think how much more we can do earlier when the children know all of the speech sound monsters. When they know all the speech sound monsters, we can use them for so many different things. Supposing you had to send home sight word heavy books, or your child was coming home with sight word heavy readers. This is going to be really hard to read. And why? They guess from the B, thinking that might be the sound B. What's in the picture? It's a butterfly. So the children will learn to say, look at the butterfly, even though they're not really understanding, well, they're not understanding the mapping, the phoneme to grapheme mapping, which is what we need for orthographic mapping. So think what you can do with the monsters. If you remember, you've got access to the monsters, but you've also got your monster mats that you can cut up and what have you. So if they've figured it out that the words are look at the butterfly and the next page is probably look at the caterpillar or what have you, then think, okay, so if it's look at the butterfly, what are the monsters? Code map it, monster map it with the children, and this is what leads to orthographic mapping. The mapping of words that you're probably not mapping in your phonics program, perhaps at, yes, and look maybe because we've got the ook, but are you using the schwa in the word the? And what about butterfly? That's got a schwa as well. So think about all the words the children come across, and about 65% of them are made up with 300 or so high frequency words. So code map them and monster map them. We've actually already done it for you. If you're not sure about the code mapping, it's brilliant. Use the SSP Monster Mapping app. It's got the videos, or get a membership.
The is.
Even very young children can do this, and it also really supports the development of phonemic awareness because they're not having to remember what those graphemes are, they can just blend.
That's a better say father. It's like that's my father.
That is your father, yes. Ooh, look at this one. Oh, let's go.
Jackson has that in his name.
Does he?
Yeah,
Okay.
too. Now.
E.
They're both in the same order. Chin.
O. I. N. J.
Orange.
Well done. Do you want to play it on here? Orange. Find the monsters.
But we don't have the. You only have that. You only have that thing.
Let's try this one. I like this monster here.
We're still in
Yeah. We always read from left to right, so we'll start from here.
Want.
Well done.
Yay!
Good one.
Many.
Good boy.
That was what I was thinking of. That word was.
That doesn't say I though, does it?
This. No, it said it.
That's right. So try that one again.
So, Je.
Do you know what that one is?
It's hard to remember.
That's okay. It is hard to remember. Tell Mummy the sounds again.
So it goes, ready?
Yep.
it has O,
Mhm.
and then it has
Mhm.
and then you listen to all the other sounds.
Okay.
Mm.
O, I, N, J.
Yeah.
What do you think that makes? O, I, N, J.
Orange.
Yes.
Yes. Gone so good so far. And to ant.
Go.
Acorn. Father. What want? Many. Orange. Orange. Ant.
Go.
Acorn. Father. Many. Orange.
What sound is this letter A making in that one? It. What sound is it making in this word? What about this one?
Listen.
This one, the first one. What sound is that letter A making?
A.
Good job. What about this one? What sound is it? Oh, and what about this? What sound is this letter? Good job.
So that's Skylar, who's for Skylar. Just monster map their names. Their names often have graphemes that are not going to be covered in their phonics. How long are they going to have to wait to be able to spell their name? So they don't. They learn to memorize it. We don't want that. So alongside your phonics teaching, the 4 code levels, I want you to explore any words at all. So think about code mapping and monster mapping them so the children can work out the monsters, or just show them the monsters so they know what the word is, and then look at the word and code map it. And at the training today, we're going to have a little one, Spencer, who's going to help you do that. And he's 4. So remember, orthographic mapping isn't an instructional method. It's the stage of the code mapping process at which kids can read without conscious thought. It's not something you teach, it's something they reach. But it's definitely something you can facilitate. So I want you to try monster mapping and code mapping as often as you can with as many words as you can. So duckhands, lines, numbers and the monsters are going to potentially be your most powerful weapon against illiteracy.